Hello, 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 and welcome to the long-awaited episode 3 of the MisBehaviourists with me, Ben O'Loughlin, and my esteemed colleague and co-host, and the man with more degrees than a thermometer, Dr. John Hyland.
Hi, everybody, and thanks again for a wonderful introduction, Ben.
How are you? How's the form?
More degrees than a thermometer. Yeah, it's going well. I mean, I'm no Bruce Banner. I think Bruce Banner had like 7 PhDs. I just have the one, but that's enough.
He was the Hulk. He was the Hulk, was he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Incredible Hulk.
yeah.
I think he had like 7 PhDs or something crazy like that.
Really? Would you ever consider doing more, or are you like?
Well, it's funny. Like, I mean, there's some colleagues of mine would have like a DClin and a PhD. So the DClin would be a doctorate in clinical psychology,
Sure.
whereas
Yeah.
PhD would be like your kind of academic route, kind of doctor of philosophy.
Yeah.
But so I am, and it's fun. Like, it kind of can't remember that film with Chevy Chase in it, where they're like doctor, 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 doctor. But they're technically, I suppose it's kind of funny to refer to them as doctor.
Doctor.
But
Yeah.
I am aware. I think there is one person maybe I know that has 2 PhDs. So they did a PhD in kind of computational modeling or something like that, and then a PhD that kind of had an emphasis on philosophy.
Yeah.
But it's few and far between. Well, in my circle of colleagues,
Sure.
anyway.
Yeah. Like I remember when I finished my masters, I was like, "There's no way," and I was like, "I'm not going near a university." I was like, "Ever again." I was like, "No,
Yeah,
that's enough for
yeah,
me."
yeah,
But now after I've been away for a while, like I wouldn't rule it out. Like my
yeah.
supervisor in Tilburg at the time, he asked me would I consider it, and
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
I was like, no. I was like, I
yeah.
didn't even entertain the idea. But it
Yeah,
was not. It was nice. It was nice to be considered. But
yeah, yeah.
for
One
them,
thing,
go on. Yeah.
yeah, no, that is an honor, like, for a supervisor to turn around and say,
Mm,
would you be interested in doing this? They obviously seen something in you that would they would feel you'd be a someone who could lead the direction of whatever it was you were working on, towards a PhD. So
sure.
it is a great endorsement
Mm.
of your ability.
And you never know. Like you never know. I might look at it again and do it in the future. But for the moment, I'm.
Yeah,
Um,
I will be honest. I mean, it's important to have a strong, in my opinion anyway, from my own experience, it's important to have a strong kind of support network around you, because
mm,
with the PhD, you might be the only person investigating what you are looking at, and you don't have many people to kind of maybe talk to about your specific ideas. Or so to have a friend network, firstly, to just be able to talk about everything that's not the PhD,
mm,
and also to have a strong academic network whereby you can actually share ideas. It's important to have that outlet as well, though. You don't want to kind of try, be thinking about your PhD 24/7. Well, some people do, and that's
sure.
perfectly fine for them. But to have that outlet where you can just check in with a friend and just talk about music or talk about anything other than the PhD is great as well.
Because you need to let your ideas kind of. What would you say? Just kind of go around in your head, because it's like sometimes, and this I suppose this not necessarily just with a PhD, but sometimes you're so if you're working on a project, you're so deep inside it
So
in this.
close to
You're
it, yeah.
so close to it that you can't see the bigger picture, and sometimes
Mm,
it takes somebody else, or it takes stepping back, or
definitely.
not doing it for a week, and then you go,
Yeah,
oh, maybe hang on, you might
yeah,
find some new insight or a new angle that you were stuck on, because you were so stuck on this one little small piece
yeah,
that's only a
yeah.
tiny piece of the puzzle.
Like, some of the limitations maybe in my own experiments or whatever came around because someone I was talking to someone who wasn't that close to it, and it was from their kind of maybe from their external, their kind of non-psychological viewpoint or whatever. they actually seen things that I was just too close to be able to notice, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that when I'm talking about psychology with people who don't have not that they don't have an understanding of it, but they didn't study it.
Yeah,
And they'll just ream off something. Oh well, I
yeah,
think this, and you go, oh wow, I never thought of that before.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
you're so stuck in the theory and of
yeah,
what you've learned or what you've been told to be
yeah.
scientific fact or whatever. That
That's it, and I think that's why, as a lecturer, you know something, when you empower students to be able to kind of bring their own experiences to the class, it really enriches the conversation, the discussion you're having, and they bring
ah,
ideas to you that you never thought of, or you never thought about it within that particular context, or they're kind of giving you, as I said in previous episodes, they're giving you maybe their understanding of it without the psychological terminology or the theory behind it, but they're kind of challenging you to think about your understanding of the theory within their domain, within their context. And again, it's when people bring their knowledge like that, whether it's underpinned with their knowledge of theory or whatever, it still enriches the class and it enriches your knowledge as well.
absolutely. And I'd say, I suppose it's the different lived, excuse me, the different lived experience of
Mm,
different people.
that's
They
exactly it.
they will have undertaken different tasks and stuff throughout their life and gone through different heartaches and different troubles, and
Yeah,
maybe some people have built up more resilience because they've
yeah,
had a tougher life, and
yeah,
they'll have a totally different view on this particular theory or
yeah,
than somebody who maybe hasn't experienced such hardship
exactly.
or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Exactly. So you have people coming from pharmacological backgrounds who might be talking about classical conditioning and
Mm,
addiction. You might have someone else coming from working as a special needs assistant and looking at the various kind of educational programs for children
mm,
with with kind of limitations in terms of their verbal repertoire, and you're getting it from so many different kind of applications in the context of addiction, from the context of education, from the workplace as well. um
absolutely, because I
yeah,
remember in my degree where you were my supervisor, we had all sorts of different types of people in our
yeah,
class. Like
yeah,
we had from, as you said, like kind of special needs
yeah,
assistants who are more in kind of looking after people with autism and stuff like that, to prison wardens, to guards, to people that are very, very high up in business, to people in the army,
yeah,
all sorts of different types of
yeah.
people. Like, and I remember it was so strange because I remember my first, God, I remember my first day. I remember my first day, and I was, so whatever, there's 90 people in our class or something, and we're told what we're going to do for the next 4 years. And I remember the fear I had. I was just sitting there, knew nobody. I actually knew one girl, actually, it was a coincidence. Knew no, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, what have I done? What have I got myself into?
Yeah,
How do I get out of this as quickly as possible? Like I was honestly, I was nearly running for the door, and it's only then like 2 years in that you start to find that you really get to know everybody and find out about
yeah,
different people's backgrounds and how different everybody was, but we were all together doing the same thing. It was really interesting, super
yeah.
experience. I'd highly recommend it. Like,
I think it's good to be talking about this now, I suppose, because
yeah, sure,
some students are going to be going into first year in a couple of weeks from now,
yeah,
or I don't know if it's if any maybe some students have gone back at this stage, was probably a
mm,
little just a little bit further away, but it, I mean, that trepidation, that's, I mean, you're going into the unknown, especially for people like mature students that might have been out of the educational system
mm,
for 15, 20 years or longer, that we we would both know, or that we would both have taught, or kind of had as classmates. And that kind of idea of anxiety, it's something that it's a natural reaction to
Yeah.
something that you haven't really, you know, that response is natural because you're in a context that you've been so far removed from
Yeah.
for so
Yeah.
long. Or even if you're a first year student coming in from secondary school, it's a new context, it's a new campus, it's a new building, it's a new experience. Now I know with COVID, it's going to be it's going to be different for some, in the sense that
Sure.
there will be a lot more kind of online focus, but it's still the same idea that you're doing new subjects that you haven't done before, that you're engaging in new conversations and new ways of independent thinking that you may not have engaged in before. So even if you're not on a physical campus, doesn't mean that you aren't kind of feeling those anxieties about, what am I doing here, like imposter syndrome or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
but you can feed off it. Like, I
Yeah,
had that anxiety like, I'd say for the first 6 months of first year.
yeah,
Okay, so to give a bit more background, I did the part-time degree, so it was 2 nights a week. I think it was two nights a week of 3 hours for 4 years, it was
about
4 years, something like that.
yeah,
And the first bit was awful. Well, it wasn't awful, but I mean, it was anxious and it was tough. You're only
yeah,
getting to know people and you're learning new content and you've no idea what to do.
yeah,
But it's until you start getting feedback and start doing your first assignments, and the first assignments you're like, oh my god, I've done all
yeah,
right. And then if you start doing okay and you start getting your results, and then you start thinking, oh well, maybe I actually can do this.
yeah,
And then the
yeah,
more feedback you get, you're like, okay, maybe I can do this really well, actually.
yeah,
Because the more work you put in, obviously, the harder you work, the more you
yeah,
read, the more. And as well, it's follow the instructions. Do what your lecturer tells you to do. Or like same for the leaving cert. Like, do what your teacher tells you to do. Like, if you read all the right stuff and answer all the questions, like.
yeah. I mean, the readings that are made available to students, based on topics, they're not there just for the fun of it. Like, they are there because those readings are kind of your opportunity to expand what you covered in class. So it's just going to give you a more rounded understanding of what you covered. But that being said, like, I mean, I think it's important to encourage students as well in third year to start to kind of embrace embrace the whole experience, not just kind of focus on readings, but also talk to other people, share ideas with other people, and let your ideas be questioned. And then, some of the scaffolding that you had built up might fall down, and then you rebuild it again, and you start to be a lot more confident in your viewpoints, I think, and that translates quite well then to assessments and exams or whatever, when you're more confident. I'm not saying you'll ever know the answers, because the idea of science,
Yeah,
it's
like
that kind of
it's okay.
progressive cycle.
It's okay to be wrong.
Oh,
Like,
definitely, yeah.
it's not. I'm not saying it's good to be wrong, but it is good to be wrong because you can
It,
learn from it. You can't
of
just
course, I
think
mean,
you're
you need,
like.
yeah, you need
Like,
that opportunity to be able to learn. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And like, I've huge respect, obviously, for anyone that goes to university, but especially for, as you said earlier, for people who haven't been in the education system for a while,
yeah,
because you see it. Like, I worked a lot in bars, in the past, not in the recent past as well, and you can see it from chatting to people. Like, sometimes, like, this could be customers, you know what I mean? I'm not saying they're all alcoholics or whatever, but they just be in, what you do? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm sick. But they like say, I'm sick of my job. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, would you not do something new? Would you not think you could do something new? And then they go, oh, no, I can't. I can't teach an old dog new tricks.
yeah. Not
But
at my age
oh,
or
not at
whatever.
my age. And like, it really bothers me. It really gets at me. Like, and I'm like,
Okay.
no, you can. Like, you just need to. Oh no, I wouldn't know how to do it. I'd be useless at it. And
But
I feel like getting a bit angry at them and going, of course you're going to be useless at it. You've no idea how to do it. You're going to be useless at it on day one. But day two, you're going to be a little bit less useless at it. and then day 3, and then by day 100, you're actually okay. And then by day 200, like, you're getting pretty good at it. It's just about, like, it's a mindset shift that you need, like that. Yeah, you can improve. Like, you can't, like, and it really bothers me. I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it really, like, it really gets to me, like.
If you look, unless you're someone like Mozart, you're not going to sit down at the piano and just start playing concertos, straight away. You're going to be banging keys and causing earaches for people maybe in day 1. But again, day 2, you become slightly more proficient. And sometimes you might feel like you're taking a step back, but again, it's all, it is progress.
Yeah,
Just going back to the other thing, yourself, some of the, and I can testify to this, that some of the best students I've ever had, were out of education for 15, 20 years and so on.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible students.
And it doesn't just go for education, but it goes for anything you're doing new. Like, if you don't want to go to the gym, or you don't want to start running, or something, it doesn't have to be health, but whatever it is, like, you're not going to be good at it the first time you do it. You need to know that, but that shouldn't be a reason to stop you trying to do it. And it's the fear of failing, and it's the fear of being bad at it, and the fear of getting laughed at that stops people from doing stuff. And
it's a very powerful thing.
Oh yeah, but that can ruin someone's. It's not ruin their life, but it can stifle their potential.
Yeah.
Like, they could be really, really good at one thing that they've done their entire life, but they don't. But it's, I'm good at this, really good. I'm really good at whatever it is. I'm really good at one specific thing. I can't think of an example now, but the reason you're good at it is because you've been doing it so long.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not that you're good at that thing. It's not that you're designed to do that specific task, but it's because you've been doing it every day, or whatever, 5 times a week for so long.
That's it. Like, what I say to students is that the difference between myself and yourselves is that I've been doing this for a good while longer. There's no reason to think that, just because I'm standing up here chatting and you're sitting down, that I'm somehow inherently more suited to this. I mean, that's, I'm just further along the line of kind of doing these things than you are, But coming back to that idea, like, escape and avoidance, they're very, like, they're very useful strategies available to people to avoid things or to get out of situations that they're uncomfortable in. And those, we see those strategies throughout our lives, and sometimes they relate to kind of those, those inherent things like avoiding pain. But it's not just about avoiding physical pain. It's also about, avoiding anticipated and anticipated consequences that make us feel uncomfortable. What if we don't understand this? What if our lecturer tells us that we're stupid? Or not that lecturers would say that.
It's all what if.
Yeah.
But it's like the thing where looking at the doctor with the needle coming at you it's far worse than the needle itself.
Yeah.
Because your mind, Jordan Peterson explained this really well once. He says it's like, all you need to do is think about the anticipation of pain is turn off all the lights, or close the door, turn off all the lights in the next room, and stick your hand around the corner into a room that you don't know what's in there, and then see all the crazy things that will come into your mind about what could be in there, what could happen.
Yeah.
And all these bad things will come in, and then you turn on the lights, and it's a banana or whatever. Like.
Yeah. I just picture I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, where you're putting your hand in those
exactly.
crawly.
Exactly. Did you ever see? There was one I saw. It was a potato or something, and people are so frightened because it's what it could be.
What it
could be. But that's the same about what could happen if I try and do this new thing. Oh, I might fail. People will laugh at me. I'll be a laughing stock. I'll never be able to leave my house again. I won't be, the lads in the pub will hear about it.
Yeah.
And more than likely what's going to happen is if you decide to do something new, there'll be a small percentage of people who might go, oh, look at your man trying to do something new there. Oh, he thinks he's great. But he's only, that's only his or her own insecurities reflecting the situation on the other person. Whereas if the new person goes and achieves something, then they're jealous of them. Oh, I wish I'd done that. Like,
there was an interesting study. I apologize to the authors. I can't think of who it was, but they basically got someone to wear, like, they asked them, what would you think is, I don't know if I mentioned this on previous episodes, what do you think would be the most embarrassing t-shirt that you could wear going to a party? And I think they ended up wearing a t-shirt with a face of Barry Manilow on it. And so they went in anyway, and they mingled with the people in there, and they had a drink or whatever. This was before, pre-COVID, in the before times. And they came out and they were asked, how many people do you think actually paid any notice or would be able to recall what you had on your t-shirt? And they were like, oh, the vast majority of people. And I think it turned out like something like 70% of people actually couldn't recall what was on the t-shirt of the person.
Yeah, that's
even recall it, let alone actually find it, that they would mock the person or anything like that. Just even recall what it was or describe it.
I think I'm right. Is that called the spotlight effect? I think.
Well, I suppose in cognitive psychology that would relate to the spotlight effect.
Like it's like when. It's like if you have a spot or a zit on your nose that you're all, people are, you're wondering about, people are looking at me, and they think it's
so the focus is
on you, but it never is. Like, people are far too worried about themselves to be worrying about you. Like, they're far too selfish to be worrying about their own spots to be worrying about your ones.
That's it. And if you look at I know it's kind of, we're talking about it more, I suppose, in terms of your perception of how attention is on you or reflected on you, but if you look at just generally speaking how unreliable eyewitness testimonies are, and how certain biases and that sort of thing actually affects how we recall things in the first place,
Yeah, like the selective attention test is amazing. That was like so for anyone that how do I do this without giving it away? Okay, so for anyone that has not heard of the selective attention test, pause this now and Google it and watch it. And then for the people that have seen it, did you see the gorilla? So if you haven't paused it, I might have ruined it, but
that's like telling someone that the ship sinks at the end of Titanic.
Kinda, yeah.
You've ruined it, Ben.
Well, hopefully they pause it. I was trying to not give it away, but it's hard. Yeah. But yeah, we'll only, and that's because we're I learned this in consumers. We're very goal-directed beings. So if you think of all the stuff that we're trying to achieve in our day, if you look at them as goals, like, I'm hungry, I need to eat food. Oh, I need to get my work done. I want to go for a run. Or all the stuff that you want to do, all your desires, if you look at them as goals that are goals that want to be achieved.
Yeah.
But some goals will take precedent over others. And what can happen in some instances is that if you're really, really focused on one specific goal, is that you'll almost be blind to everything else. It's like, if you're really, really hungry, that's all you're going to think about. So that's to explain the selective attention test, like I'll explain it now, and I know I've probably ruined it, but so you're asked to There's people dressed in white and people dressed in black, and you're asked, they're all passing, I think it's basketballs around, and you're asked to count the number of passes between the white team, and you and they're throwing the ball around. So you're looking at going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the middle, a person in a gorilla suit dressed in black comes out and goes,
yeah,
and walks off, and it's like a very high percentage. I don't know what it is. It's like 70%. I don't know if that's the number. Just don't see it. Don't see the gorilla because they're focused on the white, because that's the goal-directed behavior.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, really interesting. And what's even more interesting is that the authors then went to know what we'll do. For people that know it, they made other changes.
Yeah.
Like they changed the background or something. Or did you notice this? And you're like, oh, hang on a second. So you think you know what's coming, and then they change it again. Really, really interesting.
There's a psychologist actually. Is his name Richard Wiseman?
I've heard of Richard Wiseman, definitely.
Yeah, but he does this really interesting kind of experiment. You can see it on YouTube, and he calls it the amazing color changing card trick or something like that. Now again, pause if you don't want us to reveal anything at this stage, and go watch it. So you pause this now. But the idea is that it's this idea of distraction. So you're trying to figure out how he's doing the magic trick and changing the color of the cards or whatever it is. But while he's doing that through kind of camera sleight of hand and whatever, is that at one stage he changes the clothes he's wearing, the color of the clothes he's wearing. He changes the table mat color. He changes him and his assistant change the color of the backdrop behind them, all while you're concentrating on the card trick, that sleight of hand. And again, it catches so many people out when you look back over these 3, 4, 5 things that change. All the time you're not noticing them because you're focusing on the cards.
Yeah, so it's
that goal. But yeah,
it shows how blind we really are, like, and how we're influenced by our perception of the world rather than what's actually happening. It's like I think we spoke before about people's perceptions of what car they're traveling was, what speed the car was traveling on it. At when it hit, smashed, bashed, and all different people's different perceptions. And eyewitness testimony we talked about before, like, ask anybody, oh, what happened that night? And they're like, oh, well, this and well, that, and it's all different. And it's like,
and of course, certain discriminative stimuli or certain kind of environmental factors, then whether verbal or non-verbal, can influence your recall. So you have someone say, a number of people are after witnessing an event, and someone says, did you notice how they had a very oddly shaped nose? Then all of a sudden you're kind of you're starting to describe someone and starting to draw them with an oddly shaped nose, and you may not even recall why you're doing that, and it has nothing to do with how the person looked. It's that there's this kind of distortion, this event that happened that kind of affected the validity of your response.
Well, isn't it something like when you remember something, you're not remembering the actual experience. You're remembering the memory of the experience. So your memories are malleable, like your memories change. So if you ask, I think this is right now, if you ask somebody what happened about it at the party last week, and then they'll tell you something, and then they'll discuss it with somebody else. But then if you ask somebody a month later, oh, what happened at that party? They're remembering the last time they remembered it. Or they're reimagining it rather than remembering it, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it's like, in their memory, in their description of the memory, you might find that there's information that somebody else told them happened, but in their reimagining of the situation, it happened. Just shows how unreliable
Yeah, well, I
our
mean, that's the
memories
thing.
are, like, long term.
Yeah, there's a number of like contextual or kind of environmental cues that will kind of have an effect on how we respond. So whether that's verbal, whether that's, you know, some kind of the difference in how the what would you say, kind of the luminance or the luminosity of a room, or whether it's kind of other verbal stimuli or conversations that have occurred between your recollection or your, you know, and the actual event. All these things are part of your prior experiences. All these are part of your history of reinforcement. So it is going to affect the way that you respond when you recall a situation.
Absolutely. And depending what emotional state you were in at the time of the specific situation, and depending on your emotional state when you're remembering it. Like, if you're in a bad mood and you're thinking about something bad that happened, it's going to be really bad. Your memory of it's not going to be pleasant. Yeah. But if you're in a really good mood and somebody reminds you of a thing that happened, you go, it wasn't that bad. Because you're in your emotional state, you're in a positive emotional state at that specific time.
I think if you look at token economies and go back to the kind of goal focused, what we were talking about with goal focus, if you look at kind of token economies, what's really useful is if you take something like a coffee card where you kind of you get a stamp every time you buy a coffee. Yeah, loyalty card, and then after say 8 of them or whatever, you get a free one. Well, there's two types of reinforcer or kind of reward happening there. You know, firstly, you're getting a stamp, and every time you get a stamp, you're getting closer and closer to actually getting the reinforcer that you're looking for. And to have that visible, to have that kind of, you know, I have 4 stamps now, I have 5 stamps. That's also powerful in and of itself, and that can be that can lead to your kind of responding, kind of continuing. Do you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
I think it's if you can make kind of reinforcement visual like that, it's all about trying to increase the potency of that kind of consequence, and people may forget that every time you get that stamp and you're getting closer and closer to actually getting the thing that you want, whether that's a coffee or whatever, that journey towards getting that kind of continues to motivate you, or continues that kind of that kind of schedule of responding. So whereas if you didn't have it visual, and that's why I kind of wonder about there's nothing stopping a coffee shop from just saying, okay, you're now 5/8 of the way towards your goal, or 6/8 of the way towards your goal. But there's something different between someone saying that to you and even opening up an app. Like whenever, even with the virtual, you know, with the apps to get your coffee card, you see the physical stamp on the card on your screen. And it, you know, that kind of making it so visual, making it so relatable, so transparent, has an important effect on the likelihood that you will keep going towards. It makes it more visible, it's more there for you. So I think from a business perspective, having that kind of visual component is helpful. And whether it's business or whether it's your own personal life, is there a way that you can visualize your journey towards something? Like, oh, you know, on an app or whatever, I have lost another pound, I am closer now, I can see it.
Strava are brilliant at that. Are you familiar with Strava?
No.
So Strava is, I've been running a lot recently. I'm really getting, I've loads to talk about this. So I've been building habits of running.
Yeah.
In August. So I ran 35 kilometers last week, and I've run Yeah, I ran 5 times last week, and I've run the last 6 days in a row. And I'm trying to run I'm trying to run 5 kilometers every morning at the moment, and it's going well so far. I've done the last 6 days in a row,
Wow, that's brilliant.
and I feel great. But Strava have loads and loads of that. They know exactly what they're doing, so they have like it's for anyone not familiar with the app. You have something similar to kind of a Facebook or Instagram feed, and you run, and it tracks your run on GPS, your run or cycle or sailing or whatever it is. There's loads of different exercise stuff that you can do, and it tracks it. And then you've got a feed that shows everybody else's activity, and then people can like it or they give you kudos. So you can see, but as you said, it also shows your progress. It shows how much you've run this week. It shows you how many calories you've burned. It shows you how long it took you. It gives you, if it's a personal best. Here, let me get some inspiration here from it. But what's really the smartest thing about it, which I've noticed, is, do you remember we were talking before about your status within a social group?
Social status,
your social status within a group. Well, what it does is one of its triggers to try and make you subscribe. So it's got a free. I'm only on the free version, but you can subscribe and pay $9.99 a month, and it gives you it gives you more details on your training. But one of the triggers it shows you, it shows you, let's say it shows you your rank within other people in your area of specific routes that you've run. So it shows.
So they kind of put you at a particular percentile or whatever.
No, it tells you. Oh, yeah, exactly. It puts you at a percentile, but you don't know what it is unless you subscribe.
Okay.
So it's, remember, like, because I really want to know, like, so at the moment, my record for running 5K is 21 minutes and something, and 20. But okay, but also I'm like 10 stone, and I weigh nothing, and I've been cycling. I've been living in the Netherlands for 5 years, and I cycle everywhere, so I was kind of fit anyway.
Yeah. I wouldn't even get to those numbers if I was continuously running downhill. That's what I might try to do. Something, just run downhill.
Apparently, my buddy who runs a lot, he's like, yeah, like you've got like the kind of natural runner's body anyway.
Yeah.
So, and I was kind of reasonably fit anyway, but and I've lost my train of thought now. So
you were talking about the triggers.
Yeah, so it shows you what your rank is within other people in your area, or other people that have run certain segments or certain from this position from here to here, and it shows you. What it does, it shows you the top 10, and then it shows you where you are, but it doesn't show you. It shows you that you could know where you are, and and I'm like, you really want to know how good you are against.
Kind of feeding off your curiosity to know exactly how well you're doing. Yeah.
But that's using that thing we talked about before, your social stage within the group.
Yeah.
Because you want to increase your social stage with everybody else. You want to know where you rank.
Yeah.
Against everybody else.
That's really interesting. But I was just thinking about I remember hearing something that, I don't know if you're familiar with Matthew Pinsent. Him with Steve Redgrave, he would have won like
he was a rower, was he?
Yeah, 4 gold medals or something. And I heard him recently talking about how you have to focus on the process in sport rather than necessarily the goal. Like the goal might be to win or whatever, but you need to get your process right. If you can focus on your process,
same in business,
then the other things are likely to follow. So there needs to be a focus then on creating goals or kind of reinforcing the process rather than focusing too much on the reinforcement of the goal. Because if you don't get the process right, then you're much less likely to achieve the goal. So focusing on ways to reinforce or reward good process, or kind of good, whether it's reactions or positioning or movement or whatever, how do we reinforce them in a way that moves the kind of the focus on getting the process right over the goal? So how do we create greater value in kind of the achievement of of good process or good
Well, I tell you
position?
what, you're dead right, because I was talking to this and I've got a lot of tips from my buddy who's probably listening. Hello, Glenn. Um, Stretching. So I have a process that I go by every morning now. This is kind of like building habits. Remember I was talking about habit stacking before?
Yeah.
I went back and I read that book. I listened to that book again. It's called Atomic Habits by, I can't remember the author's name.
It's all about audiobooks these days, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And what I actually did, because when I started the running, I couldn't run every day first because my legs were too sore. But I'd cycle in the morning then instead, and I'd listen to a book or something when I was cycling instead. So I was listening to that book, Atomic Habits. So I've started to really get my morning routine very structured. So I wake up, try and get up at 7:30 or 7 or 7:30. Then I have a tiny bit of smoothie, which I've already made, that I have in the fridge, just to get something in. Then I have a cup of coffee, kind of wake up a little bit, stretch, do the same stretching routine, and then do a run, whether it's 5K or 7K or something. And then I make sure I do a similar route, and I kind of speed up and slow down in the same spot, and I listen to the same music, and I kick faster with the music.
Interesting. Okay.
And one thing my buddy was saying, breathing is really important. So and I found we went for a run together last week, and I found it more difficult because I didn't have the music in my ears. When you're really struggling, I really struggle, and you can feel yourself that you want to stop, but you just focus on the music. And sometimes then I'd focus on something on the ground 15 meters ahead and just focus on that, and then focus on something else and something else. And then you find yourself actually speeding up. Your pace will increase because you kind of get into a flow. That's not the right word, but you get into a rhythm. Yeah. And then it's the things that you because sometimes you just want to stop and you're like, oh, I can't run anymore. But then the more you do it, the easier it gets.
So do you think then that the kind of the goal and the fact that you're achieving particular outcomes that make you kind of happy or fulfilled or content, and you see gains happening, do you feel that reinforces your focus on the process from morning to when you run?
Absolutely.
Then
yeah, absolutely. And I've done it my goal is to I have a goal in mind that I want to hit, and that's to run 5K under 20 minutes.
Wow.
So I have 1 minute and 17 seconds or something to knock off my current best time. And I don't have it to I really should put a time that should really be before Christmas or whenever, but I haven't done that yet. But we'll see. I'll let you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I've thought about that, and I know it was interesting listening to him. He was talking about sports psychologists and how they kind of help him to focus on the process instead of the goal, because you could imagine how distracting the goal would be. It's like, oh, I really, really want to win. Well, you're not going to win unless you have your process down to a T. You have that kind of your focus is on doing those bits correctly. And let the goal emerge from that. And then, and then if the goal doesn't emerge, then to start to look at those kind of small little, executing those small little movements or whatever, and trying to make them more precise or whatever. But is there something that behavioral scientists can do to actually increase the value of those processes rather than leaving it all to be reinforced by the outcome as to whether you achieve a goal or not, because sometimes you will get your process spot on and you won't win or you won't make gains. So how do we keep people persisting, whether it's in terms of sport, whether it's in terms of exercise, whether it's in terms of fitness, whatever it is? How do we keep people kind of persisting and keep that focus on progressing, you know? And
well, from a personal perspective, I can say that what's helped me, what's kept me doing it, is how I feel afterwards. I don't necessarily actually enjoy the running that much. Oh, the more you do it, the more you enjoy it, because it doesn't hurt your body as much.
Yeah.
Like my legs aren't sore anymore, and my chest doesn't hurt, and my sides don't hurt unless I'm actually going, like, trying to get a fast time or whatever.
Do you think there's an avoidance part?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
You know, like, oh, if I don't run for a certain amount of time, I'm going to have more aches and pains next time I do it.
Well, it's more that people are like, oh, if I have to go for a run now, oh, I'm really not going to enjoy it, and it's going to be painful, and I'm going to be panting, and it's not going to be fun. And I felt this only in the last 2 months now. Only in the last 2 months. Like, I feel way better.
Yeah.
I feel way better. I'm going to bed earlier because I'm like, oh no, I want to get up, because in my calendar I have 8 o'clock till 9:30 is exercise, shower, eat breakfast, and that's what I try and stick to.
Yeah. And you're going to feel better for sticking to your routine, for doing it, I suppose.
Absolutely. But like I did it for loads of reasons. Obviously, with the pandemic, I want to be as healthy as possible to try and negate any or mitigate any risk for getting the virus or whatever. I kind of, the healthier you are, that's in my head anyway. I don't know if it's actually.
Yeah, having a good immune system or whatever. Yeah,
that's one thing. But another thing is, I've always found it difficult in the mornings, just in general, whatever way whatever way my body is set up. I always found it really groggy and stuff in the mornings, and I found it hard to get going. And this, like, just blows that out of the water. Like,
wow, yeah.
And I think about, I often. And I've chickened out a few times, and I thought about you, and I thought about you talking about the hot and cold states.
Oh, yes. Well, like, yeah. And it affects everyone, yeah.
And I've done it, and I did it last week, and I was really annoyed at myself. I missed 2 days last week. I missed Wednesday and Thursday last week, and the first one was Wednesday, and I was like, no, it's okay to take a day off. And it's fine. Of course it's fine to take a day off.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
but the next day it was pissing rain, and I was like... no, I'm not going out in the rain. And then I was like, later that day, I was really annoyed at myself. And then I went to the shop, and it was raining, and I was in my coat, and I was roasting. I was like, oh, it's going to be all cold and wet. And then I went out the next day when it was raining, and it was lovely. It was nicer than running usually, because it was the rain.
Yeah.
The rain was like keeping you nice and cool.
Yeah.
So I think about that in the morning. And I get up and I go, oh, I don't really feel like it. But now I've got the habit that I get up and I put on shorts and running thing, and I get the socks, and I get my running shoes, and I kind of, when I'm still kind of like, and I put coffee. So I'm in the habit of getting dressed to run in the morning. And then I go, oh, I really don't feel like this. And I tell you, you're a kilometer in, and you're like, oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Kilometer in, and it's like, oh, deadly amazing. This is cool.
Yeah.
And then you're finished in 25 minutes, and then you have a shower, and then you have it, because you've exercised, then you have a big breakfast because you've already exercised and you're hungry. And then it's like 9 o'clock or 9:15 or whatever. You're wide awake and ready to work. Like, I'm one of those people that can eat anything and never put on weight. So I'm one of those terrible people that everybody hates. I think it's an ectomorph body type. So like Even if I didn't exercise, it's not like I'd be putting on loads of pounds. It's more
Yeah.
it's like I do it more for mental health than physical health.
Yeah.
The exercise, because
Yeah.
they're definitely connected.
Yeah.
Like it
I
makes
know with me that if I say, if I've been like, because I would kind of, you know, kind of be doing intermittent fasting, and I find that kind of the longer, the longer I leave it since I've eaten, the more I'd be willing to do in order to get food. So
mm,
it's like, you know what I mean? Because the food now really means a lot to me. I'm willing to put in the effort to get access to the food. So it's like, because I've deprived myself of food for, so many hours or whatever, I'm not full, I'm not satiated, and I'm really looking forward to food. So if I have to do certain things in order to get my food, like if I have to go out to the shop and get the food or whatever, I'm willing to do that, because it's been so long since I've eaten, I'm quite hungry.
mm,
And I find when I go to the gym or whatever, is that it kind of increases the potency of food. Like I feel hungrier, so I'm much more likely to overcome or do certain things in order to achieve that outcome than if I hadn't, for example, because I wouldn't be as hungry in the first place. I wouldn't be in that state of deprivation or of
mm.
deprivation.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Um, no, but it's interesting, that whole thing, because I can kind of relate to it, with the, like, going to the gym or whatever. It's like you feel, I don't know what, it's kind of weird. Like I'll make sure I'll reward myself. Like if I go to the gym, I'll reward myself with my favorite type of filtered coffee or whatever when I come home. And I just sit down then, and I just enjoy it. So I enjoy it more. It's like I feel like I've worked hard to achieve this outcome.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
I really like that, and I use that kind of reward system, rewarding yourself for good behavior, kind of positively reinforcing yourself for
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
work. You'd spoke about this before, like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll watch or for an example, I watch an episode of, if I correct 30 test papers, then I can watch an episode
Yeah.
of Game of Thrones or whatever. I kind of do
Yeah.
that when I'm working. I go, all right, I'm gonna write this paragraph or whatever I'm working on. I'm gonna write this email for a client, and then I'm gonna play the guitar for half an hour.
Mm.
When I'm finished doing that,
Yeah.
I
Well,
find
that's
that
nice.
really helps. But going back to the sports, before um I decided to study economic and consumer psychology for my master's, I had seriously considered doing a master's in sports psychology, because I really
Okay.
found that really interesting, and especially from the golf perspective. There's a guy called Bob Rotella, I think his name is, and he's a golf psychologist. And I think we speak before about Porrick Harrington,
Mm.
and all about visualization, like how they visualize the shot. Like they can see the shot. Like Tiger can see the shot he's going to play before he plays it. And then it's all the muscle memory comes in of all the practice they've done. But without that visualization in the first place, they're not going to have the confidence, they won't have the confidence themselves to execute the shot.
Mm.
And I have a lovely little story that I'm going to tell now. So
Intriguing.
this happened about a month ago, and so I play golf myself. And about a month and a half ago, it was really, really nice weather here in the Netherlands, and I have a driving range. Not I have a driving range. There is a driving
Look at
range.
you. Ooh, la-di-da.
I have my own driving range. There is a driving range that is, there's a golf course and driving range in Part 3, which is about a 25-minute cycle from my house, from my apartment. And you have to cross. So I put my clubs on my back, and I take half a bag of clubs because it's not that heavy. And I cycle there, and then I go and play a game of golf. And but there is a ferry that you have to take at the top of my road. There's ferries in Amsterdam and all over the Netherlands, as in they're like public transport. They're free just to get you across the river. They're passengers and bicycles. But as you would imagine, now you have to wear a face mask on the like it's mandatory. And so I already had my because I had my clubs on my back, and it was lovely weather. I had my sunglasses on, face mask covering me, and as seems to be over here, everyone, like 99% of people are compliant wearing face masks, especially they have to on public transport, but they only really do it like right before they get on, and they take it off when they get off the ferry or the bus or the train or whatever. But because I had my clubs on my back, I already had mine on when I was cycling from my apartment to the ferry.
Right, okay.
So I cycled down, I've got my clothes on my back, and I'm ready to go. And I'm in the queue. I'll bring a bit more psychology into this. So there's also these lovely... I have to somehow, like, otherwise just telling the story. So they have these... I spoke about nudging before, and little nudges to get people to take certain actions. So they have really clever nudges to help people queue, socially distant queuing. So they have a heart on the ground that are all 1.5 meters apart, and in the middle of the heart there's two footprints. Yeah. Which increases the chance that people will stand on the thing. So I thought it was really clever because the heart around the thing is like, right, we care. Like, you have to care about other people. It's a really smart nudge. I bring in psychology somehow. And there you go. So there it is. So there I am. There's about 25 people queuing ahead of me. I'm there on my bike with my clubs around me, with my big face mask and my big black sunglasses. Yeah. But nobody else is wearing a face mask. Right. And then there's a guy ahead of me, about four. It's so funny. There's a guy about 4 people ahead of me, and he kind of looks around, and I don't know how I noticed him, but I just noticed him, and he kind of looked at me, and I could see he looked directly at me, and he kind of smirked, kind of went, and I look at your man, look at your man in his mask. So I think, and so I've thought a lot about this, and I've thought a lot about this situation, and I'm specifically because I want to tell this story on the podcast. Yeah, of course. And I believe he was a tourist because, and the reason I say that is because he had a T-shirt on and it said Amsterdam on the back. So I'm like, well,
how many people that live in Amsterdam?
How many people live in Amsterdam? So I think he was a tourist. So then, so then the ferry comes. Oh no, so what happened next? So then, so he's looking at me and kind of smirking and laughing at me. And I'm looking at your man and I'm going, and I was like, oh yeah, you're laughing because I'm wearing a mask, aren't you? And this is, wait till you see, now you're going to have to get on this ferry. And I was thinking to myself, I bet you. And I was dead. I was like, I bet you this lad. I bet you this lad it won't get on the ferry because he doesn't have a mask. And anyway, and then next, so your man's kind of looking around and nobody else is wearing a mask, and there's no one at the time. There was nobody, no security guard there stopping people. And then the ferry comes along and everybody on the ferry is wearing a mask, and then suddenly the security guard turns up again. So the ferry is arriving, and I can just see your man's kind of face, his kind of changes a little bit. He's like, and he's kind of looking around, and I'm not a mind reader, obviously, but I could literally see his mind going, oh, maybe, I'm sure I'll get away with it though. So this is again going back to people will try and get away with anything if you let them. They'll cheat if they can, if they think they can get away with it. And so the ferry arrives and the thing comes down and people start coming off the ferry and all taking off their masks. And I'm watching your man like a hawk at this stage. I don't want to miss anything. And then, before that, the security, and when I say security guard, he's like 20. Like, he's not a
Yeah.
security guard. He's just some
Yeah.
kid. And he's obviously got his face mask on. And people are leaving the ferry. And then everybody else in the queue kind of just goes into their pocket, puts on their,
Takes out their
their face
yeah,
mask. So I'm watching this guy like a hawk, kind of going, oh, what's going to happen? And he gets to... So we all start... So the people get off the ferry. And then everyone starts getting on the ferry. And... then he's no mask, and he tries to walk on, and your man goes, security guard, the kid goes, oh no, sorry, and then I'm laughing under my face mask.
So it's just your head going up and down, yeah.
And then he's like, oh no, and he's like, no. The guy's like, no, you have to wear a face mask. And then he goes, oh yeah, sorry. And then he goes into his bag, and I went, oh, look, he does have one. He must have one in his bag. Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. So then your man goes, oh yeah. So he's rooting in his bag for about, and he's delaying the ferry. Everybody is on the ferry at this stage, and he's delaying everybody. And he was out of his bag. He kind of presents the guy with a towel. he just kind of goes, huh? Do you want a towel? And the kid is like, no, face mask. He's like Monte Kappa or whatever it's called in Dutch.
Yeah.
So your man is delaying everybody at this stage, and he's like, no, you can't. And he starts kind of, you can see, and I stayed at the back of the ferry because I could kind of hear or could see at least what was going on. He's like, no, you can't get on the ferry. And then some kind local goes, here, look, he had a spare disposable one. And he gives it to your man. He goes, oh yeah, thanks. He gets on the ferry. So your man gets on the ferry, mask in hand.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I was like, put on your mask, put on the mask. He's like, thanks. Sticks it in his back pocket. And I was like, it's driving me insane.
Well, what's the mask going to do in his pocket?
Well, exactly. And then your man is like, put it on. And he's like, oh, sorry, yeah. And then eventually.
Oh my God.
So like, people will try and get away with all sorts. But it was a very, very funny, especially when he presented him with the towel. He was like, huh, towel? And he was like, no, face
trying
mask.
to look at his face to see towel, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. But it does bring it back, like, bringing it back to psychology, that we do now. I don't know what that person's case was, but we do have to start to treat the carrying of masks as important as our phone and our keys and our wallet or our handbag or whatever. We have to start looking at these things as important. So it does kind of move on to, say, thinking about how do we do that? How do we make it as valuable as, like, is it just a case whereby, like, do we create a pre-current behavior? So for example, do we have an alarm every morning reminding us to do it? I know Facebook and I think Facebook have a little alert that appears when you're on Facebook to remind you to do it. Do we place it in the same place as we place our keys? How do we make it valuable? Now, it will naturally get valuable when, in the case of this guy, you miss out on taking a ferry because you don't have a mask. What if that Good Samaritan didn't have a spare one for them? Like, is it would they have missed the ferry and missed an important meeting, which makes it more valuable the next time to actually have one with you?
And then it can certainly, like, as you say, especially the people with the spare ones, because that could mitigate violence in some, because you can't do that, and you hear about all these kind of bad stories in the news about people refusing to wear them and then getting aggressive or violent, or like, it's like, I don't understand. I haven't looked into it. I haven't looked into the psychology behind it, but I know we talked with the public goods game, and I think that might be part of it, that people will punish people who are complying. I think there's a small percentage of people that are the people that will, they're the kind of people that will, they don't care if they lose as long as you lose.
Yeah.
there's small
yes,
percentage of people.
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
They don't care.
but
Like
like,
as
yeah,
long as
I mean,
as
wait,
go on. Sorry, go on.
you go. No, you go ahead.
Like yeah, it's like part of those. Uh, there's four. I think there's four different. When they're talking to the public goods games, there's four different type of characters of people, and it's like ultra altruistic people who will, no matter what, they'll help you. They'll help other people,
Yeah,
even at the detriment to themselves.
yeah,
Then there's people that will help people, but only if it'll benefit them as well. And then there's people who won't help anyone, but they won't help anyone. And then there's other people that will purposely not purposely try and derail other people, even if it means they have a bad time as well.
yeah.
Now, I don't think I quite got that right, but I must look that up actually now and get that more
So that
detailed for the
last
next
group
time.
is essentially what
So
Michael Caine says. There's just some people who want to watch the world burn.
exactly.
Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I know, like, I suppose, like, if we talked in previous episode, I think about kind of maybe echo chambers and on certain social media or groups of people that are very maybe focused on one viewpoint and are maybe not open to alternative viewpoints. But if you are influenced by a lot of people who believe that mask wearing doesn't have an effect in terms of spread of the disease or whatever, then if you're kind of modeling your own behavior on the behavior of other people that you respect, then there's going to be people that will not wear it because they believe that they believe what others say about it not having a positive impact on the spread of the disease. So again, you are going to be, in terms of social status within that particular in-group, you are going to be maybe ostracized or whatever if you go against the group that you see yourself as part of. And maybe that also has an influence on some people's refusal to wear masks.
Well, I saw the most ridiculous thing on social media the other day, which was a company, someone talking about a face mask that they bought, and it's like, oh, it's amazing because you can comply, but you can still breathe really easily, and it's a mesh face mask, so
Right.
it doesn't block. It's
not
just got
blocking in.
holes in it, but it looks like
Oh,
you're wearing a face mask. So you're
right.
you're compliant, but
Yeah.
what's the point? So
It's funny. Yeah.
so what's really interesting about that is, like, it's not a, so they obviously don't they believe some conspiracy theory that the virus isn't dangerous, but it's something about impinging their freedom to breathe. I don't know if it's impinging their freedom to breathe properly.
Yeah. Like, there are kind of viewpoints that breathing is somewhat restricted by masks, and that's why I think it's important. In Ireland, you did have this GP who or a medical doctor anyway, who came out and put on, measured, was it his oxygen level or VO level or something like that, and he put on the first mask and his VO was no different to when he had no masks on. Then he put on two masks at the same time. Then he put on three, then he put on four, then he put on five, and his oxygen levels were not going down. They were staying stable at 99%. So I think, people like that coming out and actually showing you firsthand on camera, look at my readings here, and look at the amount of masks I'm wearing, and it's not changing. Now, I know there may be some people that will still say, oh, the readings were not real or whatever, but I don't know how you overcome that problem.
Well, I'm very cynical, John, as you know. So I I I I think it's very hard to change people's minds if they have an opinion on something. A lot of people will no matter, and I'm not just talking about masks or the effectiveness of
Yeah,
masks or whether they reduce transmission, or I'm just talking in general. If people have an opinion on something,
yeah,
like it's like arguing with people on the internet. You're not going to change their mind. Like they're
yeah,
not going to go, actually, that thing you just said I completely flipped, and now I agree
yeah.
with you.
It
I'm
doesn't
gonna put
happen
on
very
my I'm
often.
gonna do this. Like how often does it happen? And I try and think about this with my own opinions as well. That's why I
Yeah, of
try and
course. Yeah.
listen to people and go, do you know what? Actually, you're right. Not that I do
Yeah.
it very often, but
No,
that kind of
it's
just proved
like,
my point there.
unfortunately, when it comes to something like the virus, and this is one of the it's a pity, but that it might only start to hit home that the virus is real when it affects you,
Sure.
or it affects the person that maybe believed that it was a hoax or whatever. It starts to affect their family, and you don't want it to get to that stage.
Mm.
And it are but are there ways kind of preceding that you can actually show or demonstrate or whatever that it is? And it's so hard to think of, because people can explain away a lot of things, whether they explain it away in a rational way or otherwise. People can
This,
explain a lot of things away.
yeah, the
So
post rationalization we spoke about before. It's like, oh
yeah.
yeah, well, I didn't wear it because, and there wasn't that many people around, and I just thought it'd be fine. I was like, whatever.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like we'll
But like, I mean,
see.
that,
Sorry, we'll see now.
yeah,
Um, Today is the 9th of September,
September, yeah.
so this may not be released for, I don't know. I mean, it may not be live um that soon, but um the wet pubs in Ireland are due to open on the, am I right there, the
21st.
21st?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Um, I I I I don't know. I think the irresponsible people might outweigh the responsible people.
You think so?
Yeah, I've been niggling. Like I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm
Yeah.
wrong. But like the boozes are open. Let's go on the lash. Like you can just look. I can understand why the
Yeah.
government decided to keep them closed for so long. And some people are saying, oh,
Yeah.
there's draconian laws that like the longest in Europe, but there's a different relationship with culturally with alcohol in the country than other places in Europe. And I
Mm.
think, I don't know, but this is only my opinion. So like, geez, I could be wrong. Everyone's got an opinion, you know.
I've always felt that the the younger generation coming through now have a healthier relationship with alcohol compared to when I was younger. Now, again, this could be just, this mightn't be, this isn't based or evidenced in any opinion, but I think that there's more of a healthy movement among younger people, like
Sure.
and there's still always, there are going to be kind of a certain cohort that would be heavy drinkers and would kind of buck the trend. But I've just noticed from my younger students coming through that they seem to have a quite a healthy relationship with alcohol. I could be wrong. Maybe it's just me trying to or notice things that I want to notice. But
Yeah, that's
um,
the thing as well. Yeah, the confirmation
yeah,
bias is like, oh, look
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Look, I told you I was right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's an interesting one,
Exactly.
though. How do you, and I don't know like, how do you try and combat um, confirmation bias? So confirmation bias is if you have an opinion about something and then you find information that confirms that, you're like, yeah, look, I told you, while disregarding uh, conflicting information. I suppose that's
Yeah,
confirmation bias. How
yeah.
do you try and combat that because I do it myself. I'm like, oh, I'm looking for something. Yeah, there it is.
Oh,
Knew I was right.
I'd say everyone does it to certain degrees,
Yeah.
and I think at times you just have to remind yourself that, if even if you look at science, like you will find maybe isolated papers that may confirm your viewpoint, but you have to dig deeper and really kind of see, like, look at your meta-analyses, or look at kind of your like, say, effect sizes, and look at kind of a culmination of papers related to something rather than just one. But you're all like, if you want to confirm your view or whatever, it's not going to be hard to find it. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I went for a walk today, and I seen no homeless people, therefore there's no such thing as homelessness.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty bizarre to say something like that.
Well, I didn't see any. So they're
Yeah, you didn't see any, therefore it doesn't exist. Or, oh, I went out today and it was freezing cold. So much for global warming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, like, it is something. No, it's not to say, like, you could have a viewpoint that would be very well evidenced, and so it confirms something that there seems to be some semblance of truth in. But at the same time, I don't know. I think it's. I always come back. I know it's a cop out, but I always come back to the importance of teaching critical thinking skills at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
In primary school or whatever. Like, I mean, there's some countries that are better than others that actually teach children to be skeptical and not just believe what they see all the time.
I completely agree. Yeah, like my dad, I have a sister, and she's going into 5th year, so she's 17, I think, or 16.
You need to know.
And she'll be 17 in December. I do know what age she is. And my dad was saying that, yeah, especially in these days with kids, like, learning so much from the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I found this thing on the internet. Well, look good, it must be true. So my dad is like, make sure you have at least 3 other sources that can confirm it, that you can find confirmatory sources, and then see if you can find something that criticizes it and looks at it from a different angle. And then
that's really good. That's a really good kind of thing to teach a child.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because then you can go, you're trying to, then your mindset is, okay, I'm going to read something, but I'm not going to take it as true. I'm not going to take it as gospel. I'm going to wait until I can find other thing, and then I'm going to write about it, but still not, well, this person says this and this person said this, so it could be this and it could be that.
Yeah. And I think, and then you can go next step and kind of say, okay, when you're looking at the 3 other sources, just make sure that they aren't blatantly related to the original source. So it actually seems to be from a different part. Like, there doesn't seem to be a kind of a conflict there.
Absolutely. And who paid for it? That's really good. Obviously, that was one of your great advice you gave. I think that was actually in our first lecture. Was like talking about research
in the research lecture, just talking about, is there financial interest here? So you think about the area of pharmaceuticals, or you think about where a context whereby people can make a lot of money based on evidence. Make sure that you're fully aware of conflicts of interest like that, and they're fully disclosed, and it doesn't seem to affect the quality of the research that's being.
You get that in marketing too. So a lot of marketing now is all about experimental marketing and trying to do lots of A/B tests and all that kind of stuff. But you can take, if you're, especially in marketing, you can take whatever kind of sample. If you're looking for an answer, this is trying to confirm your own ego of what you want to happen. You can wrangle the data, and you can make the data say whatever you want to show to get your idea across the line.
And in the same breath, if you find an alternative viewpoint, the point that contrasts with yours, you'll delve deeper to try and find a reason why it's wrong.
It just shows how important hypotheses are at the very start. just like they're just
testability, falsifiability. Yeah,
absolutely, and the validity of like of the data.
Yeah.
For sure, with John, we could go on and on and on and on and
Well,
on.
we could, like, we've done it again. We've just been blabbing on now for over an hour and a half, or thereabouts.
But I think we might leave it there, will we, for the day?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah, I'm starving. It's 2:00 here. Have you any final parting words for our dear listeners today?
I think actually where we finish up there in terms of the importance of being skeptical is a good place to finish, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, absolutely
relevant no matter who is looking at this, to remain skeptical of what you hear.
Whether it's psychology or it's whether you're reading whether you read something in the newspaper, like it's I
think, even be skeptical of us.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially John.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's hard and people believe every word I say, but please be skeptical of me as well.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a good place to leave it. Also, I have a small announcement to make as well. I've made a Facebook group, and you can find that on Facebook, obviously. It's called the MisBehaviourists. It's free. You can just jump in. All the episodes will be in there, but it also gives people a platform to ask some questions, to add comments to if you agreed with something we said, or if you disagreed, or if you think we got something wrong. And I really like that as well. If we've got something wrong, or you know something deeper about a specific topic that you can add to. So maybe we can kind of build a bit of a community and start getting it going. So it means we'll also have some inspiration for future episodes, and it'll give us motivation to keep doing this.
You know, you can't have us just talk about things that we really want to. You have to give us things that might make us uncomfortable as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And it might be nice then. It means it might put us in a direction where we might talk about stuff that we don't know so much about, so we might do some research about it, and then we can see how that goes.
A learning process for us.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll leave it there.
Brilliant.
And so I will play us out with this wonderful, if I can find it,
earworm.
Wonderful tune. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.